In a world where every human is born on the first floor of an endless tower, life is a constant struggle. The tower is both a prison and a path to greatness. Those who climb gain power, while those who fail are erased from existence. For Lu Chen, an ordinary office worker from Earth, death was supposed to be the end. But instead, he awakens in the tower, reborn as one of its inhabitants. Unlike the others, he possesses something unique, a system that grants him the ability to grow stronger at an accelerated rate. Thrown into brutal trials, surrounded by those who would do anything to climb, Lu Chen must use his wits, skills, and the power of his system to survive. But as he ascends, he begins to uncover the secrets buried within the tower, secrets that could shake the very foundation of this world. In a place where only the strong can rise, can Lu Chen carve his own path to the top? The climb begins now. Chapter 1: Awakening in the Tower. The world was dark. Lu Chen felt weightless, his consciousness floating between the abyss of nothingness. It was only moments ago, at least, he thought it was moments ago, that he had been walking home from work, his phone in one hand and a cup of instant noodles in the other. He had just gotten his promotion, life was finally looking up, and then a truck. A blinding flash. And now, this. Before panic could settle in, a voice echoed through his mind. Cold, mechanical, yet oddly familiar. System initializing. Host detected, Lu Chen. Synchronizing consciousness. Welcome to the tower. A rush of sensations hit him all at once, air filling his lungs, the rough texture of stone beneath him, the distant chatter of people. His eyes snapped open. The sky was vast but not endless. A massive ceiling loomed high above, its surface shimmering with an ethereal glow. Around him, stone buildings lined the streets, their architecture resembling an ancient Chinese city. People bustled about, dressed in a mix of traditional robes and battle gear, their eyes filled with determination and purpose. Lu Chen sat up, his head pounding. Memories that weren't his flooded his mind. The tower. A world where all humans were born on the first floor and had to climb higher through trials, battles, and sheer strength. Each floor was a world of its own, with unique dangers and opportunities. For the weak, life was a constant struggle. For the strong, glory and power awaited. And he was now one of them. System detected. Activating beginner's package. A translucent blue screen appeared before his eyes. Name, Lu Chen. Age, 18. Level, 1, 0 out of 100 EXP. Title, none. Talent? Skills, none. New mission, survive. Before he could process anything, a sharp voice interrupted his thoughts. You there, stop daydreaming. Get in line. Lu Chen turned to see a burly man clad in armor, a scar running down his left cheek. The man's cold eyes scrutinized him. Around him, dozens of young people stood in formation, their expressions tense. You're all fresh blood, new to the tower, the man announced. That means you're worthless. You have nothing, no strength, no skills, no worth. But in this tower, the strong rise, and the weak fall. Your first test begins now. Lu Chen's heart pounded. He had no idea what was coming next. But one thing was certain, he had no choice but to move forward. Chapter 1: Awakening in the Tower, Part 2. Lu Chen steadied his breathing, forcing himself to stay calm. His mind was still racing, he had just woken up in this unfamiliar world, and now he was being thrown into some kind of test. But he had no choice. The burly man continued his speech, his voice like thunder. In this tower, you either climb or you die. Weaklings are nothing more than stepping stones. You all have been born here, and today marks your first step toward proving your worth. The first trial is simple: defeat the opponent in front of you. At his words, a series of blue screens appeared in front of every participant. Lu Chen's own screen flickered to life. Trial of the first floor, basic combat test. Objective: defeat your assigned opponent. Rewards: tower approval, basic combat experience. Failure penalty: loss of tower blessing. Before he could fully process the meaning of tower blessing, the burly man clapped his hands, and figures appeared in the open space before them. Dummies. Or rather, training puppets made of wood and iron, each standing at about the same height as their assigned opponent. As soon as they appeared, they moved, their wooden limbs creaking, metal joints clicking into place. Lu Chen's eyes narrowed. This was a test of combat skills, something he had none of. Back on Earth, he was just an office worker. Fighting wasn't exactly part of his daily routine. System notification: you lack combat skills. Generating assistance. Suddenly, a new screen appeared before him. Skill acquired: beginner combat proficiency, F rank. Effect: improves basic combat movements such as striking, dodging, and footwork. Lu Chen's body suddenly felt lighter, and knowledge flooded his mind. His stance naturally adjusted, and he instinctively clenched his fists. The training puppet in front of him lunged. Its wooden arm shot forward in a straight punch, fast but predictable. Lu Chen barely had time to react, but his newly gained proficiency kicked in. His body moved on its own, shifting to the side as he dodged the attack. So this is what the system does. He wasted no time and countered with a punch of his own. His fist struck the puppet's torso, sending vibrations up his arm. It barely staggered. I need more force. The puppet retaliated immediately, swinging its other arm at his head. Lu Chen ducked, adrenaline surging through him. He wasn't a fighter, but this system-made proficiency was helping him survive. Nearby, other participants were also fighting. Some were struggling, getting knocked down repeatedly. Others handled their puppets with ease, showing clear combat training. Lu Chen didn't have time to compare himself to others. His opponent was relentless, and if he didn't finish this quickly, he'd tire out first. His eyes darted around, searching for an opening. Then he saw it right at the joints. The wooden limbs connected to the torso through small metal hinges. That's the weak spot. He adjusted his stance and waited for the puppet to attack again. When it did a downward chop toward his shoulder, he twisted his body to avoid it and drove his fist directly into the joint. Crack! The puppet's arm snapped backward at an unnatural angle. Its movement slowed for just a second, but that was all Lu Chen needed. He followed up with a powerful kick to its leg joint, and the puppet collapsed. A system notification appeared. Trial complete. Rewards gained. Plus 10 EXP. Plus 1 strength. Plus 1 agility. Lu Chen exhaled, stepping away from the now motionless puppet. His arms ached from the impact, but he had done it, his first fight, his first victory in this new world. The burly instructor scanned the group, his expression unreadable. Some of you have potential. Some of you are disappointments. His gaze lingered on a few who had failed to defeat their puppets. You will receive no second chances. Those who failed, you are unworthy of the tower's blessing. Before Lu Chen could wonder what that meant, a chilling scene unfolded. A few unlucky participants trembled, their faces turning pale. Moments later, they collapsed onto the ground, unmoving. Dead. A shiver ran down Lu Chen's spine. The tower doesn't tolerate weakness. He clenched his fists. If he wanted to survive here, he needed to get stronger fast. New mission unlocked, prepare for the next floor. Chapter 2, The Harsh Reality of the Tower. The bodies of the fallen were swiftly dragged away by armored figures, their expressions emotionless. No one dared to speak. The lesson was clear: failure in the tower meant death. Lu Chen's fingers curled into fists. He had barely survived his first trial, and the stakes were already terrifyingly high. This wasn't some game where he could restart after failing. One mistake, and he was done. The burly instructor surveyed the remaining participants, his eyes sharp. You've proven you're not completely useless. But don't think for a second that this means you're worth anything yet. He gestured toward a towering stone gate at the edge of the training ground. Your next task begins now. Enter the gate and face the first floor's true challenge. A deep rumbling echoed as the massive stone doors groaned open. Beyond them, darkness stretched forward, thick and suffocating. Lu Chen's system chimed. New quest: enter the first floor's trial. Objective: survive and defeat the guardian of the first floor. Rewards: plus 50 EXP, basic weapon selection. Failure penalty: death. His heart pounded. This was just the beginning. One by one, the participants stepped forward, disappearing into the gate's darkness. Lu Chen took a deep breath and followed. The moment he crossed the threshold, the environment shifted. The air turned damp, the scent of moss and earth filling his nostrils. He found himself in a massive underground cavern, glowing crystals dotting the rocky walls. A wide stone path stretched forward, leading deeper into the unknown. Suddenly, a screen popped up in front of him. Floor 1 Trial, the Beast's Awakening. Objective: defeat the guardian of the first floor. Guardian: Ironclaw Wolf, level 5. Lu Chen frowned. He was only level 1, and his only skill was beginner combat proficiency, F rank. The difference between levels in the tower wasn't just a number, it meant a significant gap in strength. A sharp growl echoed through the cavern. Emerging from the shadows was a massive wolf, its body covered in thick, iron-gray fur. Its claws gleamed like steel, and its red eyes locked onto Lu Chen with a hunger that sent a chill down his spine. The Ironclaw Wolf. A system notification flashed before his eyes. Beast analysis activated. Name: Ironclaw Wolf. Level: 5. Strength: 12. Agility: 15. Skills: Ironclaw Strike, Predatory Rush. Threat level: deadly. Lu Chen barely had time to react before the wolf lunged. His body moved on instinct, beginner combat proficiency kicking in as he twisted to the side, narrowly avoiding a swipe from those razor-sharp claws. The wolf's claws scraped against the stone, leaving deep gashes where he had just stood. Cold sweat ran down his back. One hit could kill him. He needed a weapon. His eyes darted around, spotting something glinting nearby, a rusted iron sword half buried in the dirt. He dashed toward it, but the wolf was faster. With a snarl, it pounced, closing the distance in a split second. Lu Chen barely managed to roll forward, grabbing the sword just as the wolf's claws raked the ground behind him. New weapon acquired: rusted iron sword, E rank. Attack power, plus 3. It wasn't much, but it was better than nothing. The wolf snarled and charged again. Lu Chen gripped the sword tightly, forcing himself to focus. He had no experience fighting beasts, but the system's combat proficiency was keeping him alive. He dodged another swipe and countered with a slash at its leg joint, just like he had done with the training puppet earlier. The blade bit into flesh, and the wolf let out a pained howl, stumbling slightly. It was working. But before he could celebrate, its eyes glowed red. Ironclaw Wolf activates Predatory Rush. The beast's speed doubled, its movements turning into a blur. Lu Chen barely lifted his sword before the wolf was on him. Pain exploded in his side as he was slammed into a stone wall. His vision blurred. Blood dripped from his lips. His HP, though not visible, was dangerously low. If he didn't do something now, he was dead. Gritting his teeth, he forced himself to move. The wolf lunged again, aiming for his throat. But this time, Lu Chen didn't dodge, he stepped forward. Just as the beast opened its jaws, he drove his sword straight into its mouth. Crack! The wolf's own momentum forced the rusted blade through the roof of its mouth and into its skull. The beast shuddered, its eyes wide with shock, then it collapsed, lifeless. A notification appeared. Trial complete. Rewards gained. Plus 50 EXP. Level up. Level 2, Level 3. Basic weapon selection unlocked. Lu Chen panted, staring at the dead beast at his feet. He had one. But as he wiped the blood from his mouth, he knew one thing for certain: this was just the beginning. Chapter 3: The Path of Growth. Lu Chen remained still, his heart pounding in his chest. The Ironclaw Wolf's corpse lay before him, its blood pooling on the cavern floor. He had one, but the pain in his ribs and the lingering exhaustion reminded him how close he had been to death. Then, the system chimed again. Level up. Level 2, Level 3. A warm sensation spread through his body, the aches and fatigue from the battle fading slightly. He felt stronger, as if his muscles had subtly tightened, his senses becoming sharper. A new notification appeared. Basic weapon selection unlocked. Choose your reward. 1. Iron longsword, D rank, balanced weapon for offense and defense. 2. Twin daggers, D rank, lightweight and fast, suited for agile combatants. 3. Reinforced gauntlets, D rank, increases hand-to-hand combat power. Lu Chen didn't hesitate. He selected the iron longsword, and a brilliant light formed in front of him. When it faded, a sleek, well-forged sword lay in his hands. New weapon acquired, iron longsword, D rank. Attack power, +7. Durability, 100 out of 100. He swung it a few times, feeling the weight. Much better than the rusted sword. Just as he was about to inspect his status, movement from deeper within the cavern caught his attention. The other participants were still fighting. Some were struggling against their wolves, while others had already finished, bloodied but victorious. Then, another notification appeared. Tower ranking updated. Lu Chen, rank number 7. His eyebrows rose. Ranking? The system seemed to keep track of all participants. That meant there were at least 6 others stronger than him. Suddenly, a loud boom echoed through the cavern. A figure soared through the air before slamming into the wall not far from Lu Chen. The impact left a deep crater, and the person groaned before falling limp. Lu Chen's eyes widened. The one who had been sent flying was level 4. A shadow loomed from the depths of the cavern. Emerging from the darkness was a young man with a cold, indifferent expression, his long black hair tied back. He wore simple robes, but the ease with which he had just sent an opponent flying spoke volumes of his strength. Then, the tower rankings updated again. Lin Tian, rank number 1. Lu Chen's grip on his sword tightened. So, that's the strongest among us? Lin Tian barely spared a glance at the fallen opponent before walking toward the exit of the cavern, clearly unfazed by the battle. The instructor's voice suddenly echoed. Those who have completed the trial, step forward. Lu Chen took a deep breath and walked toward the gate leading out of the cavern. The survivors gathered, their numbers significantly lower than before. The first trial is complete, the instructor announced. You have taken your first step in the tower. But do not grow complacent, this was merely a test of survival. The real challenges begin now. A massive stone staircase appeared before them, leading upward. To climb means to grow. To stop means death. If you have any hesitation, turn back now. No one moved. Lu Chen's gaze shifted to the staircase leading to the second floor. There was no turning back. Taking a step forward, he began his climb. Chapter 4, The Battlefield of the Forgotten. Lu Chen stepped onto the second floor, the golden light of the staircase fading behind him. His surroundings shifted, revealing a vast battlefield covered in dust and ruins. Broken weapons and armor were scattered everywhere, remnants of an ancient conflict. A distant wind carried echoes of movement, though no visible enemies were in sight. Before he could take another step, a system notification appeared. Floor 2 Trial, Battlefield of the Forgotten. Objective, endure for 30 minutes and neutralize at least 3 adversaries. Opponents, Phantom Soldiers, level 4 to 6. Rewards, plus 100 EXP, basic armor selection. Failure consequence, removal from the tower. Lu Chen exhaled. Another test of survival. A faint mist swirled in the air, and figures slowly materialized from the ruins. Phantom Soldiers. They wore faded armor, their faces obscured by mist-like energy. Some carried swords, others had spears or axes. Their movements were smooth yet eerie, as if they weren't entirely bound by physical laws. Their gaze locked onto Lu Chen, signaling the start of the trial. The first soldier moved, stepping forward with calculated precision. Its spear darted out, aimed straight at Lu Chen's chest. Lu Chen twisted his body, narrowly avoiding the attack. His combat proficiency skill guided his movements, helping him maintain balance as he adjusted his footing. He countered with a quick slash from his iron longsword, D-rank, aiming for the soldier's torso. But the blade passed through the figure, meeting little resistance. The phantom soldier remained unaffected, advancing once more. Physical attacks don't work? Before Lu Chen could reposition, another soldier with an axe swung at him. He raised his sword just in time to deflect it, but the force behind the attack pushed him back. Then, a new notification appeared. Weakness identified, phantom soldiers require spirit-infused attacks. System assistance available, unlock latent potential? Lu Chen barely hesitated. Yes. A warm sensation spread through his arms, and suddenly, his sword emitted a faint blue glow. New skill acquired, Spirit Slash, E-rank. Effect, imbues weapon with spirit energy, allowing it to interact effectively with spectral beings. The phantom soldiers advanced again. This time, Lu Chen moved with confidence. He sidestepped an incoming strike and swung his sword with newfound energy. The glowing blade connected, and the effect was immediate. The phantom soldier staggered as its mist-like form trembled. A moment later, it dispersed into light, fading from existence. A system alert followed. Opponent neutralized, phantom soldier, level 4. Plus 30 EXP gained. Lu Chen's expression steadied. Now he had a way to fight back. The remaining soldiers advanced, but his spirit/skill allowed him to counter their movements, dispelling them one by one. His reactions became faster, his strikes more precise. As the last phantom soldier faded, a final notification appeared. Trial complete. Rewards gained. Plus 100 EXP. Level up. Level 3, Level 5. Basic armor selection unlocked. A warm surge of energy filled Lu Chen's body. His breathing steadied, and he could feel himself becoming stronger. Looking ahead, he saw another staircase ascending to the next floor. The tower's trials were relentless, but Lu Chen knew one thing for certain: he wasn't stopping here. He took a step forward. The climb continued. Chapter 5: Forging a Path Forward. Lu Chen took a deep breath, standing amidst the fading mist of the phantom soldiers. His body felt lighter, stronger. Level 5 had brought a subtle but noticeable change. His grip on the iron longsword, D-rank, was firmer, and his reflexes felt sharper. A new notification appeared before him. Basic armor selection unlocked. Choose your reward. 1. Reinforced leather armor, D-rank, light and flexible, offering balanced defense. 2. Chainmail vest, D-rank, heavier but provides strong protection against physical strikes. 3. Spirit weave robe, D-rank, enhances spirit-based attacks and resistance to energy-based strikes. Lu Chen considered his options. His combat style so far relied on quick movements and counterattacks. A heavy set of armor would slow him down, but complete flexibility wasn't the best choice either. After a moment, he selected the reinforced leather armor. A faint glow surrounded him as new protective gear appeared on his body, a fitted dark brown chest piece with reinforced padding at vital areas, accompanied by matching arm guards. New equipment acquired: reinforced leather armor, D-rank. Defense, plus 5. Durability, 100 out of 100. The immediate benefits were clear. His posture felt more stable, and his movements didn't feel restricted. Around him, the other survivors were also equipping their rewards. Some examined their new armor, while others looked at the staircase leading to the next floor with wary expressions. Lu Chen knew what they were thinking. If the first two trials were already this difficult, what would come next? Then, a familiar voice echoed through the battlefield. You have completed the second floor's trial. The instructor from the first floor appeared again, standing atop a ruined stone platform. His gaze swept across the group, clearly assessing their conditions. Each floor of the tower tests a different aspect of your growth. The first floor examined your ability to battle under pressure. The second floor tested your adaptability and endurance. He paused before continuing. The third floor will test your understanding of the tower's laws. Lu Chen narrowed his eyes. The tower's laws? Before he could think further, the instructor gestured toward the staircase. Proceed when ready. The group remained still for a moment, exchanging glances. Then, one by one, the climbers stepped forward toward the staircase. Lu Chen followed, his mind sharp. The first 2 trials had been straightforward: defeat an opponent, survive the battle. But if the next trial focused on understanding the tower itself, that meant the challenges ahead wouldn't just be about strength. He had to be prepared for anything. With that thought in mind, he placed a foot on the staircase. The golden light surrounded him once more, and the 3rd floor awaited. Chapter 6: The Laws of the Tower. As Lu Chen stepped onto the 3rd floor, the golden light of the staircase faded, revealing a vast hall of towering stone pillars. The air was still and heavy, as if the space itself held a silent authority. The walls were adorned with intricate carvings, depicting figures ascending an endless staircase, their forms growing stronger the higher they climbed. A new system notification appeared. Floor 3 Trial: The Laws of the Tower. Objective: comprehend and apply the fundamental laws governing the tower. Trial type: mental and strategic. Time limit: 1 hour. Failure consequence: expulsion from the tower. Lu Chen's mind sharpened. Unlike the first 2 trials, which tested combat ability and endurance, this challenge was different. At the center of the hall, a massive stone tablet stood, engraved with mysterious characters. As the climbers gathered around, the text began to glow, and a deep voice resonated through the chamber. Those who seek to ascend must understand the foundation upon which the tower stands. More text appeared beneath the first inscription. The first law: the tower acknowledges strength, but strength alone is insufficient. The second law: the tower rewards those who grasp its secrets. The third law: the higher one climbs, the more the tower observes. The climbers exchanged glances. The meaning behind these words was not immediately clear. Suddenly, the stone tablet split into 3 separate structures, each forming a different pathway leading deeper into the hall. Above each path, glowing inscriptions matched the 3 laws written on the tablet. A new notification appeared. Choose a path to proceed. 1. Path of Strength: face a direct trial of power. 2. Path of Wisdom: solve the mysteries of the tower's structure. 3. Path of Insight: perceive the hidden truths beyond the visible. Lu Chen considered his options. The path of strength seemed the most straightforward, but if the tower itself stated that strength alone was insufficient, it likely wouldn't be the best choice. The path of wisdom might involve puzzles or strategic thinking. The path of insight was the most mysterious. What did it mean to perceive hidden truths? After a moment of thought, Lu Chen chose path of insight. A faint blue light surrounded him, and his vision blurred. When he regained focus, he found himself in a dimly lit corridor. Unlike the grand hall, this place felt isolated, as if separated from the rest of the tower. A whisper-like system message appeared. Path of Insight: observe beyond what is shown. Hint: the tower conceals what is most valuable. Lu Chen exhaled slowly. This wasn't a physical challenge, it was about perception. He advanced cautiously, his spirit/Irank still active in case of danger. The corridor seemed normal at first, but as he walked, subtle inconsistencies caught his attention. The walls appeared solid, but certain sections seemed to flicker, as if they weren't entirely real. An illusion? He reached out to touch one of the flickering areas, and his hand passed through the wall. A new notification flashed. Hidden path discovered. Bonus reward activated, plus 50 EXP, minor spirit perception upgrade. The illusion faded, revealing a hidden chamber behind the false wall. Inside, a glowing rune-etched pedestal held a single object, a translucent crystal. Lu Chen approached carefully. As soon as he touched the crystal, his vision expanded. He could now faintly perceive energy flows in the air, tracing along the walls and floor like unseen pathways. The entire tower was alive with hidden patterns. A final system message appeared. Trial completed, path of insight chosen. Rewards gained. Plus 100 EXP. Minor spirit perception, rank, acquired. Advancement to floor 4 unlocked. Lu Chen clenched his fists, feeling the subtle change in his perception. Now, he could see beyond just the physical. He turned toward the next staircase, ready to climb higher. The fourth floor awaited. Chapter 7: The Tower's Hidden Mechanics. Lu Chen stepped forward, his newfound perception subtly altering how he saw the tower. The once static stone pillars now had traces of flowing energy, faint but undeniable. He didn't fully understand this ability yet, but one thing was clear: the tower held far more secrets than it showed on the surface. As he reached the fourth floor, a vast open expanse stretched before him. Unlike the previous floors, which were enclosed spaces, this area resembled a massive floating platform, suspended in an endless sky of swirling clouds. In the distance, smaller platforms drifted in the air, connected by thin stone bridges. A notification appeared. Floor 4 Trial, the Bridge of Choice. Objective: cross the platforms and reach the end within 30 minutes. Trial type: perception and decision making. Failure consequence: fall and be expelled from the tower. Lu Chen scanned the platforms. At first glance, they all seemed identical, but his spirit perception, rank, revealed something different. Some bridges were surrounded by a faint, flickering energy, while others were completely stable. The unstable bridges must be traps. Glancing around, he noticed the other climbers had arrived as well, each assessing the challenge in their own way. Some hesitated, others sprinted forward without caution. One climber stepped onto a flickering bridge and the stone beneath his feet vanished instantly, sending him plummeting into the clouds below. Lu Chen's eyes narrowed. So that's the trick. He took a step forward, following only the stable energy pathways revealed by his perception. As he advanced, the trial became more complex. Some bridges led to dead ends, forcing climbers to retrace their steps. Others shifted positions, creating new paths. A few climbers who had chosen poorly were stranded, unable to move forward without risking a fall. Lu Chen, however, moved with precision. His spirit perception allowed him to navigate efficiently, spotting hidden paths before others. Halfway through, a secondary challenge appeared: a floating inscription illuminated in the sky. Bonus challenge: retrieve the tower's fragment. Location: hidden platform. Reward? Lu Chen's gaze followed the energy traces. Among the floating islands, one platform had a distinct, concentrated energy flow, different from the others. If he hadn't enhanced his perception on the last floor, he wouldn't have noticed it. He made a decision. Instead of heading directly to the finish, he turned toward the hidden platform. The moment Lu Chen set foot on the concealed bridge, a barrier of light surrounded him, cutting him off from the other climbers. A deep voice resonated in the air. To claim the tower's fragment, prove your adaptability. A new notification appeared. Mini trial activated, Phantom Duel. Opponent: Phantom Guardian, level 6. Objective: withstand and counter its techniques. From the mist, a shadowy figure materialized. Unlike the phantom soldiers from the second floor, this one moved with clear intelligence and skill. It didn't rush in, it observed, waiting for Lu Chen's first move. Lu Chen steadied his breath. This wasn't just a test of combat, it was a test of reaction and adaptation. The Phantom Guardian struck first, a swift downward slash aimed at his shoulder. Lu Chen sidestepped, feeling the force of the attack cut through the air. He countered with a precise spirit slash, rank, but the opponent deflected it smoothly, shifting its stance. It's learning my attacks. A new system prompt flashed. Opponent adapting to combat pattern. Solution: change attack rhythm and unpredictability. Lu Chen adjusted. Instead of predictable counters, he mixed in feints, delayed movements, and sudden shifts in footwork. Slowly, he forced the Phantom Guardian into an unsteady rhythm. Then, he saw an opening. With a sharp spirit slash, he struck directly at its core and the Phantom Guardian dissolved into mist. Mini trial complete. Rewards gained. Plus 150 EXP. Tower fragment, minor, acquired. Level up. Level 5, level 6. In his hand, a small crystalline shard floated, pulsing with faint energy. A system message appeared. Tower fragment, minor. Effect: increases future trial rewards. Can be combined with other fragments. Lu Chen grinned. The risk had been worth it. With the fragment secured, he resumed his path, stepping onto the final bridge leading to the exit. As he crossed, the notification flashed. Trial complete. Advancement to floor 5 unlocked. Lu Chen looked ahead. The climb continued. Chapter 8, The Depths of Knowledge. Lu Chen stood at the edge of the 4th floor, his gaze fixated on the stairwell leading upward. The tower fragment pulsed in his hand, a tangible reminder of his growing strength and the challenges that still awaited him. With every step he took, his sense of purpose became clearer. This tower was not simply about physical power or combat prowess, it was about understanding and adapting to its ever-changing laws and trials. The 5th floor awaited. As he ascended the staircase, he felt the air grow heavier, the atmosphere denser. The golden light of the steps shimmered in the air around him, but now there was a faint pressure, as though the tower itself were beginning to observe him more closely. When he reached the 5th floor, he was greeted by an entirely new environment. This floor was a vast library, stretching as far as the eye could see. Endless shelves of ancient scrolls and books filled the space, stacked high against towering stone walls. The faint scent of parchment and ink lingered in the air, and the atmosphere felt alive with knowledge. At the center of the library stood a grand podium, beneath which a massive book hovered in the air, surrounded by faint golden symbols. Lu Chen's instincts told him that this was the trial. A new notification appeared. Floor 5 Trial, the Tome of Truth. Objective: read and interpret the knowledge within the Tome of Truth. Trial type: knowledge and understanding. Failure consequence: permanent loss of one's memory. Lu Chen's brows furrowed. Permanent loss of memory? That sounded like a high-stakes trial. But the Tome of Truth seemed to be the key to understanding what lay ahead in the tower. He approached the podium cautiously, his heart beating faster as the glowing book opened before him. The pages were written in ancient script, the language unfamiliar to Lu Chen. But as he focused, a strange sensation washed over him. The symbols began to shift, and his mind instinctively understood the meaning behind them, as though the tower was offering him an understanding of this forgotten language. A new system prompt appeared. Tome of Truth, Knowledge of the Ancients. Information. The tower was created to test the potential of beings from all worlds. Each floor serves as a trial to prepare them for the ultimate ascension. The true nature of the tower is beyond mortal understanding, its purpose is hidden until the final floor is reached. Lu Chen blinked. Ultimate ascension? The mention of something so grand made his mind race. What did it mean? Was the tower not just a test of strength but a way to achieve something even greater? Another passage in the tome caught his attention. The tower's architects. Clue. The tower was built by beings from the highest realms. To ascend fully, one must understand the connection between realms and prove their worth across all stages. His heart skipped a beat. Beings from the highest realms? Suddenly, the pages began to blur, the symbols shifting rapidly. Lu Chen struggled to keep up, but the information flooded his mind. He could now see not just the words on the page, but the entire framework of the tower itself, the structure that tied each floor together, the energies that fueled the trials, the secrets hidden deep within. It was as if the tome was testing him, asking if he could comprehend and hold this vast knowledge. Lu Chen closed his eyes, focusing on his breathing to calm his thoughts. He couldn't allow himself to get overwhelmed by the sheer weight of what he was seeing. He had to retain the information. Moments later, he felt the knowledge settle within him. His perception of the tower's laws had deepened, and he now understood the path ahead more clearly. The book's glow dimmed, and a final system notification appeared. Trial complete, the Tome of Truth. Rewards gained. Plus 200 EXP. Understanding of the tower's essence, E rank. Advancement to floor 6 unlocked. Lu Chen took a deep breath. The weight of the knowledge was heavy, but it was also empowering. As the Tome of Truth closed, a faint portal opened, leading toward the next staircase. Lu Chen felt ready. The trials were no longer just tests of strength or skill, they were challenges to his very mind and spirit. He stepped toward the portal, feeling the pull of the next floor. The climb continued. Chapter 9, The Echoes of Time. The sixth floor was unlike any Lu Chen had encountered before. The moment he stepped through the portal, the atmosphere shifted, time itself felt distorted, as though the very air was filled with fragments of past and future events. He could hear faint whispers, distant echoes of conversations in moments long past. Before him lay a vast chamber, its walls adorned with intricate timepieces, some were ancient, worn with age, while others appeared new, as if they had just been crafted. At the center of the room stood a massive clock tower, its hands moving in erratic patterns, the ticks and tocks reverberating throughout the space. The floor beneath his feet was smooth marble, each step resonating with the soft hum of unseen energy. Lu Chen's instincts flared, this was no ordinary trial. A new notification appeared. Floor 6 Trial, The Echoes of Time. Objective, navigate through the distorted timelines and retrieve the Hourglass of Fate. Trial type, time manipulation and precision. Failure consequence, temporal displacement, loss of the ability to control time in future trials. Lu Chen felt his heart skip a beat. Temporal displacement? That sounded far more dangerous than anything he had faced so far. At that moment, the distorted whispers grew louder, and the clock tower's hands shifted. The echoes of distant conversations grew clearer, they were voices of previous climbers, their successes and failures trapped within the flow of time. Lu Chen's mind tingled, as if the tower itself was feeding him fragments of their experiences. A figure suddenly appeared before him, its form cloaked in shadow. To cross time's river, you must first understand the flow of its currents. The figure's voice was deep and resonant, like the rumbling of thunder. Before Lu Chen could respond, the figure raised its hand. The clock tower's hands froze, and an ethereal beam of light shot downward, pointing toward a small platform across the room. Retrieve the Hourglass of Fate before time runs out. The figure's form began to dissolve, leaving only a lingering echo of its words. Lu Chen turned his gaze to the platform, where a shimmering hourglass floated. It seemed simple, but he knew better. The air around it pulsed with energy, distorting reality itself. The first step toward the platform felt like moving through molasses, each movement was slowed, as if time itself was trying to push him back. Lu Chen could feel the pressure of the distorted timeline around him, and the whispers of past climbers seemed to grow louder, urging him to turn back. But he didn't falter. As his footstep landed on the floor, the timepieces on the walls began to shift, their hands spinning faster and faster, each ticking resonating within his very soul. The floor beneath his feet trembled, and the air began to shimmer. The tower was testing his ability to control time itself. With each step, Lu Chen focused. Spirit perception guided him, helping him sense the hidden fluctuations in the timeline. He could feel the momentum of past climbers' actions and mistakes, and he used that knowledge to anticipate the shifting forces of time. The journey across the room seemed endless. The timepieces spun wildly around him, their movements warping reality, creating pockets where time flowed faster or slower. At one point, Lu Chen found himself standing still, his foot hovering over the floor. The whispers were deafening, a cacophony of warning voices from past climbers, telling him to stop, to retreat, that it was too dangerous to proceed. But Lu Chen ignored them, focusing only on the hourglass ahead. He moved forward, his every step calculated, his perception keen. The floor ahead shifted again, but this time, he was prepared. He was learning to synchronize his steps with the flow of time. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Lu Chen reached the platform. He could feel the power of the Hourglass of Fate radiating from it, and he grasped the shimmering object carefully. The moment his fingers touched it, the entire chamber shifted, the clock tower's hands began to spin wildly again, but this time, they did not stop. A final notification appeared before him. Trial complete, the echoes of time. Rewards gained. Plus 300 EXP. Hourglass of Fate acquired. Temporal control, minor, acquired. Advancement to floor 7 unlocked. Lu Chen took a deep breath as the tension in the air began to dissipate. The Hourglass of Fate pulsed with energy in his hand, its sands swirling within. He felt a deeper connection to the passage of time, and the whispers around him slowly faded away, as if acknowledging his success. The ground beneath him began to tremble once more. Another portal opened, leading to the next floor. Lu Chen looked toward the next challenge. The tower was far from over, but with each trial, he was growing stronger. He had conquered the distorted timelines, and now he was ready for whatever the next floor would throw at him. The climb continued. Chapter 10: The Vault of Forgotten Souls. Lu Chen stood at the threshold of the portal leading to the 7th floor. The air around him felt strangely cold, a stark contrast to the warmth he had experienced on previous floors. The faint glimmer of distant stars seemed to shimmer in the space before him. It was as if he was stepping into an entirely new world, one shrouded in darkness and silence. When he crossed the threshold, the scene before him was one of eerie stillness. The floor was covered in mist, and faint blue lights flickered sporadically, casting long, twisted shadows across the expanse. Towering stone pillars rose from the ground, each engraved with strange symbols that seemed to pulsate with ancient power. At the center of this vast hall stood a massive vault door, its surface engraved with intricate patterns. It emanated a heavy, almost forbidding energy. Lu Chen could sense that behind this door lay something of immense significance. As he moved closer, he felt the coldness of the air deepen, and the whispers that had followed him on previous floors seemed to fade into silence. No voices reached his ears now. The eerie quiet was unnerving, but Lu Chen's determination burned brighter than ever. A notification appeared before him. Floor 7 Trial, the Vault of Forgotten Souls. Objective: enter the vault and retrieve the Soul Stone of Eternity. Trial type: Memory and Reflection. Failure consequence: the loss of one's personal memories, erased forever. Lu Chen's heart skipped a beat. The loss of memories? The warning was dire, and the consequences of failure seemed far more personal than any he had encountered so far. As he approached the massive vault door, it seemed to respond to his presence. The symbols etched into the stone began to glow faintly, and with a low groan, the door slowly began to open, revealing an inner sanctum bathed in ethereal light. The moment the door fully opened, Lu Chen stepped forward, entering the Vault of Forgotten Souls. The air inside was heavy, saturated with a strange energy that made his skin tingle. The walls were lined with countless ancient urns, each one marked with a faded name. It was as though he had entered a graveyard, but the souls entombed here were not resting, they were trapped. The room was quiet, save for the occasional flicker of light emanating from the urns. A deep, resonant voice echoed through the vault. You have come to retrieve what is lost, but know this: the Soul Stone of Eternity does not come without sacrifice. To claim it, you must face your own past, your own memories. Do you truly wish to proceed? Lu Chen swallowed hard. Facing his own memories? He had already been through so much. But he could not turn back now. The tower's trials were only growing more difficult, and the Soul Stone of Eternity seemed to be the key to unlocking his future. He steeled himself. I will face whatever is required, Lu Chen said firmly, his voice unwavering. The voice responded with a low chuckle, and the room around him seemed to warp. The urns began to glow brighter, and the air shifted as if time itself were bending. Suddenly, Lu Chen was no longer in the vault. Instead, he found himself standing in a vast, empty field, under a sky filled with swirling clouds. In the distance, he could see the faint outline of a small village. The scene felt familiar, yet distant, like a dream. He realized he was no longer in the tower. He was in a memory. The realization hit him like a wave. The voice from the vault had been right, he had to face his own past. As Lu Chen took a step forward, the world around him seemed to solidify. He was walking toward the village now. It was a small, quaint settlement, surrounded by lush green fields. The houses were made of wood, with smoke rising from their chimneys. Everything was peaceful, serene even. But Lu Chen knew that this place was a reminder of a life he had left behind. He walked down the familiar path, the sounds of laughter and chatter filling the air. As he reached the center of the village, he saw a familiar face, a young boy, no older than 12, running toward him with a broad grin. The boy's eyes were filled with joy and innocence. Brother, the boy called out, his voice filled with excitement. You're finally back. We were waiting for you. Lu Chen felt his chest tighten as the boy approached. He knew this face. It was his younger self. For a moment, he felt the weight of the memory settle over him. This was a time before the world had changed, before he had become part of the tower. A time when everything had felt safe and uncomplicated. But the peace was fleeting. As he looked closer at his younger self, he saw faint cracks appearing in the scene like a fractured painting. The laughter, the joy, the warmth all began to fade. A loud crack sounded in the distance, and Lu Chen's surroundings began to distort, the village crumbling around him. His younger self vanished into the mist. The trial was far from over. Lu Chen steadied himself. He was ready to face whatever came next, knowing that the memories of the past were not something to fear, but a part of who he was. He had to confront them in order to move forward. As the mist closed in, he knew the next test awaited, one that would challenge him in ways he could not yet imagine. The climb continued. Chapter 11: The Price of Memory. The mist surrounding Lu Chen thickened, obscuring his vision. The faint echoes of his past, now shattered, lingered in the air, like fragments of a forgotten dream. The village was gone, replaced by a dark void stretching infinitely in all directions. The once serene landscape had turned into an emptiness, as if the very fabric of reality had unraveled. Lu Chen's heart raced. He could feel the oppressive weight of the trial bearing down on him. The vault of forgotten souls had not only made him face his memories, but it had also shown him that they could be manipulated, twisted and distorted until they no longer felt like his own. A low rumble echoed through the void. From the darkness ahead, a figure emerged, its outline shimmering in the ethereal mist. It was cloaked in shadows, but Lu Chen felt a deep, unsettling familiarity. "Do you fear what you cannot remember?" The figure's voice reverberated through the space, like a distant echo of something long forgotten. Lu Chen's breath caught in his throat. The figure was not entirely visible, but he could tell that it was familiar. As it stepped closer, its form began to materialize. It was the image of himself, but not the Lu Chen he had grown into in the tower. No, this was a version of him from the past, the Lu Chen who had not yet been chosen by the tower, a version that had lived a simple life, unaware of the trials that awaited him. "You," Lu Chen's voice faltered as he took a step back. "You are me." The figure nodded, its expression unreadable. "I am the part of you that you have forgotten. The part you abandoned when you stepped into the tower." The air around Lu Chen grew heavy, as if the very atmosphere was pressing down on him, forcing him to confront the truth he had avoided for so long. The memory of the past was not just a fleeting dream, it was a part of who he had been, and now, it was standing before him. "You cannot escape what you've lost." The shadowy version of Lu Chen spoke softly, almost sorrowfully. "You have forgotten your past in your pursuit of power. The tower has made you into something else, but it has taken from you more than you know." Lu Chen clenched his fists. The words struck deep, but he refused to let them break him. "I chose this path. I chose to ascend the tower, to become stronger." The figure's eyes, glowing faintly with a light that mirrored Lu Chen's own, softened. "But at what cost?" It reached out a hand, and suddenly, Lu Chen felt a sharp pang in his chest, a feeling of deep loss, like a part of himself was being torn away. The memories of those you left behind, the ones who truly cared for you, the ones who loved you unconditionally. Do they not deserve to be remembered? Lu Chen staggered back, his mind swirling with emotions he hadn't anticipated. The life he had left behind in the tower had been one of survival, of self-discovery, and strength. But this figure, this reminder of who he had been, was forcing him to reckon with the sacrifice he had made. The people, the experiences, the emotions he had left behind when he stepped into the unknown. "No. I can't afford to go back." His voice shook, but it was firm. "I've come too far. I won't let the past hold me back." The shadowed figure watched him silently, and for a moment, there was a stillness in the air. Then, with a slow, deliberate motion, it raised its hand once more. "Then you must pay the price for forgetting." Suddenly, the mist swirled violently, and Lu Chen's vision blurred. The shadows closed in on him, and the once familiar voice now seemed to echo from all directions. "Remember, or lose everything." Lu Chen felt a cold shiver run down his spine. The world around him seemed to twist, and memories old and forgotten began to flash before his eyes. He saw the faces of those he had known, his family, friends, and the people from his past life. But they were all fading, like distant figures slipping through his fingers. A surge of panic welled up inside him. No! He couldn't lose them, not now. He had to remember. He had to fight for the memories that had been taken from him. In the midst of the chaos, a voice broke through the turmoil, a voice that was not his own but felt like it was speaking directly to his soul. Lu Chen, you are more than your memories. It was a voice full of warmth, a voice that felt like home. He turned toward the sound, and there, standing amidst the swirling mist, was a figure he had never seen before, but the presence felt undeniably familiar. The figure was bathed in a gentle light, and its face was obscured by a soft, golden glow. Who are you? Lu Chen asked, his voice trembling with confusion and fear. The figure smiled. I am the essence of your strength, the part of you that has never wavered. Your memories do not define you. It is your choices that make you who you are. The tower may try to take what is precious, but your will is your own. Lu Chen's chest tightened as the figure reached out, placing a hand on his shoulder. The warmth that radiated from it filled him with a sense of peace. In that moment, he realized that it wasn't the memories of the past that he needed to hold on to, but the strength he had built from those experiences. The mist began to dissipate, and the dark void faded away. The vault of forgotten souls was transforming, shifting back into its ethereal sanctum. The figure before Lu Chen spoke again, its voice now clear and strong. Remember what you've learned. The power of the tower is not in the memories it steals, but in the journey it forces you to walk. Lu Chen nodded, his heart now steady. The soul stone of eternity was within reach, but more importantly, he had come to understand the true essence of the trial. The mist parted, revealing the vault door once more. The soul stone of eternity floated within, its radiant glow casting a soft light across the room. Lu Chen stepped forward, his hand reaching out. As his fingers brushed against the soul stone, the world around him began to solidify. The trial was complete. He had not lost himself in the shadows of his past, but had found the strength to move forward, embracing both who he had been and who he was becoming. The climb continued. Chapter 12, The Heart of the Tower. With the soul stone of eternity firmly in his grasp, Lu Chen felt the intense energy radiating from it. It was as though the very fabric of the tower recognized his success, and the atmosphere around him seemed to shift. The air, once heavy with the weight of lost memories, now felt lighter, filled with a strange hum of power. The vault of forgotten souls, now behind him, had left its mark on his soul. It had been a trial unlike any other, forcing him to confront not only the fragments of his past but also the very essence of his identity. The battle had not been physical, it had been an internal struggle, one that had tested his will to move forward, to embrace the choices he had made and the person he had become. Lu Chen's hand closed around the soul stone, and a surge of power coursed through him. It felt like the heartbeat of the tower itself was pulsing through his veins. The very stones beneath his feet seemed to hum in resonance with his newfound strength. The space around him began to distort, and the familiar hum of energy signaled the opening of another portal. Lu Chen felt a deep sense of purpose as he stepped forward, knowing that each floor of the tower brought him closer to his ultimate goal, whatever that may be. As he crossed into the next chamber, the air grew warmer, the temperature rising with each step. The room was unlike any he had seen before. Vibrant colors danced along the walls, and fragments of light flickered like stars in the night sky. There was a soothing melody in the air, the soft sound of music playing from an unknown source. The moment he stepped into the center of the room, a new notification appeared in front of him. Floor 8 Trial, the Heart of the Tower. Objective: reach the core of the tower and connect with its heart. Trial type: inner harmony and energy channeling. Failure consequence: disconnection from the tower, rendering the climber unable to progress. Lu Chen's brow furrowed. The heart of the tower? This was something new, something he hadn't anticipated. To connect with the tower's core itself, it was a task that seemed impossible, but Lu Chen knew better than to back down now. The chamber was vast, stretching out before him with a pathway leading toward a giant crystal at the center. It pulsed with an inner light, and Lu Chen could feel its presence calling to him, as if the tower itself was beckoning him forward. As he approached the crystal, he noticed something strange. Floating around it were abstract shapes and patterns, shifting and changing with the rhythm of the music in the air. The very room seemed to be alive, responding to his movements, weaving a tapestry of light and energy that surrounded him. He raised his hand, and the moment his fingers touched the crystal's surface, a flood of images and emotions rushed into his mind, visions of the past, the present, and possible futures all interwoven into one chaotic tapestry. Lucian staggered back, overwhelmed by the flood of sensations. He closed his eyes, trying to regain his focus, to steady himself in the face of the tower's immense power. He felt the energy coursing through him, his heart racing with the realization that this trial wasn't just about strength, it was about understanding, about harmony with the tower's true nature. In the depths of his mind, the voice of the mysterious figure from the Vault of Forgotten Souls echoed once more. The tower is not just a place of trials, Lucian. It is alive, and it tests those who climb it not only through force but through the connection between body, mind, and soul. You must align yourself with its heart. Lucian took a deep breath. The path ahead wasn't one of brute strength, it was about finding balance, about tapping into the energy of the tower and channeling it within himself. He needed to understand the flow of this energy, to synchronize his essence with the very core of the tower. He focused inward, seeking the stillness beneath the chaos. The music, the colors, the shapes, they were all distractions. He needed to center himself, to find the rhythm within the madness. Slowly, the world around him began to quiet. The images faded, and the patterns of light and energy started to form into a single cohesive pulse. Lucian's breath became steady, his heart aligning with the rhythm of the tower itself. The crystal before him began to vibrate in response, its energy now flowing in sync with his own. Lucian extended his hand once more, and this time, when his fingers touched the crystal, he felt a deep connection, a bond between him and the heart of the tower. The pulse of energy surged, and with it, Lucian felt a rush of understanding, a glimpse into the true nature of the tower, its purpose, and the immense power it held. The tower wasn't just a structure, it was a living entity, designed to test those who dared to ascend. Each floor, each trial, was a way of forging those who sought to climb into something greater. A new notification appeared before him. Trial complete, the heart of the tower. Rewards gained. Plus 500 EXP. Channeling Mastery, Minor, acquired. Heartstone of Unity acquired. Advancement to Floor 9 unlocked. The crystal's light dimmed as the connection was completed, and the room began to shift. The tower's energy no longer felt foreign, it was as though Lucian had become an extension of it, able to tap into its power with ease. With the Heartstone of Unity now in his possession, Lucian felt a profound sense of clarity. He had taken another step forward, not just as a climber but as a part of the tower's very essence. The climb was far from over, but Lucian knew that with every trial, he was growing stronger, more connected to the tower and to his true self. As the portal to the next floor opened before him, Lucian walked forward, ready for whatever challenges awaited. The climb continued, but now, he was no longer just a climber, he was a part of the tower's unfolding story. The journey continued. Chapter 13, The Echoes of Fate. The world around Lucian shifted once again as he stepped through the portal leading to the 9th floor. This floor was different. The atmosphere felt heavier, and the air was thick with an unsettling stillness. Unlike the vibrant energy of the previous trial, the 9th floor seemed almost desolate, bathed in a pale, unyielding light that cast long, eerie shadows across the vast expanse before him. The landscape stretched out in all directions, an endless field of cracked earth, where the remnants of what once might have been a thriving civilization now lay in ruins. Ruins of ancient structures, half buried in dust and sand, dotted the landscape. Towering stone pillars, their surfaces etched with symbols Lucian did not recognize, seemed to lean toward him, as if watching his every move. The world felt empty, and yet, there was a sense of something lurking just beyond his reach, something waiting to be discovered. A notification flickered in front of him. Floor 9 Trial, The Echoes of Fate. Objective: unearth the secrets buried in the ruins and confront the ancient guardians. Trial type: Insight and Combat Challenge. Failure consequence: eternal binding to the echoes of fate, trapped within the tower for all eternity. The words hit Lucian like a hammer. Guardians? Eternal binding? The stakes on this floor were high. Unlike the previous trials, this wasn't just about strength or understanding, it was about confronting something much older, something more powerful than anything he had faced before. He pressed forward, his senses alert. The air felt charged, and a low hum seemed to echo from the ruins, reverberating through the cracked earth beneath his feet. As he walked deeper into the wasteland of forgotten history, the hum grew louder, resonating in his chest. It was almost like a call, urging him to uncover the truth of the ruins. Lu Chen approached a particularly large structure, what appeared to be the remnants of a temple or sanctuary. Its grand entrance was adorned with carvings of figures and symbols, some recognizable, others completely alien to him. The doors had long since fallen, their once majestic carvings now worn away by time. Yet the echo of power still lingered in the air, as if the very stone carried a memory of what had once been. He stepped cautiously into the dark interior of the temple. The air was thick with dust, and the ground beneath him was cracked and uneven. His footsteps echoed loudly in the silence, but there was something about the place, something oppressive, that made his every step feel heavier. At the far end of the room stood an altar, surrounded by a ring of flickering candles, their flames dancing erratically in the stillness. On the altar, resting within an intricately carved stone basin, was a glowing artifact, a gem, glowing with an eerie blue light. The moment Lu Chen stepped closer, the echoes in the room grew louder, now reverberating in his mind. He heard whispers, indistinct and foreign, but filled with a strange urgency. The whispers were both distant and close, as though coming from all directions at once. "You have come to claim what is buried." A voice, deep and resonant, filled the chamber. It was not a single voice but a chorus, multiple voices speaking in unison. Lu Chen froze, his hand instinctively reaching for his weapon. But he knew, deep down, that this wasn't going to be a fight in the traditional sense. The trial was about to unfold in a way he had not expected. From the shadows, figures began to emerge. They were tall, their bodies cloaked in the tattered remains of ancient armor, their faces obscured by helmets or masks. Their eyes glowed with an unearthly light, and the aura surrounding them was one of immense power. These were the guardians of the ninth floor. The echoes of fate are not kind to those who seek what is buried. One of the guardians stepped forward, its voice like a low rumble, shaking the very air. "You will face the consequences of your choices, Lu Chen." Lu Chen felt a chill run down his spine. He had heard the name before, but hearing it from these ancient beings made it all too real. The echoes of fate weren't just a concept, they were alive, and they had been watching him. The guardians raised their weapons, their eyes locking onto Lu Chen with an intensity that made him feel as though they could see into his very soul. He understood that this trial wasn't just about uncovering the past, it was about understanding his place in fate, the consequences of his decisions. To move forward, you must confront the echoes. The guardian's voice was cold, unforgiving. Face your past and accept your destiny. Only then will you be allowed to pass. A surge of energy erupted from the guardians as they moved toward Lu Chen, their weapons raised in preparation for battle. Lu Chen's heart raced, but this was not a trial of sheer strength. The guardians were not mere enemies, they were embodiments of fate itself. He raised his hands, summoning the power of the Heartstone of Unity. The energy from the tower surged through him, enveloping him in a protective aura. His senses sharpened as he felt the pull of the echoes of fate, their whispers growing louder, more insistent. "Face what is buried, Lu Chen," the voices echoed again. "Face the consequences of your path." Lu Chen closed his eyes, focusing inward. This wasn't just a test of strength or endurance. This trial was one of understanding, a test to see if he could reconcile his past choices with his future. The guardians paused, sensing the change in him. The energy in the room shifted, and the whispers quieted, replaced by a sudden clarity. Lu Chen understood now, the guardians were not his enemies. They were the manifestation of his inner conflict. The air around him hummed with power as Lu Chen's mind cleared. The echoes of fate weren't there to defeat him, they were there to help him understand that the tower was not just a series of trials. It was a reflection of his journey, the choices he made, and the consequences of those choices. He extended his hand, and the guardians stepped back, their weapons lowering. The energy in the room became calm, as if the echoes had been satisfied. A final message appeared in front of him. Trial complete, the echoes of fate. Rewards gained. Plus 1000 EXP. Fate's insight, passive ability, acquired. Echo crystal acquired. Advancement to floor 10 unlocked. The Guardians nodded, their forms beginning to dissolve into the shadows, their mission fulfilled. Lu Chen stood alone in the ruins of the ancient temple, the weight of the trial settling over him. The journey through the tower had become something more than just a climb. It was a process of self-discovery, of understanding not just his power, but his place in the world. And with each trial, he was getting closer to uncovering the true meaning behind the tower's existence. With the echo crystal in hand and the next floor ahead, Lu Chen felt a sense of calm, as though the path before him had become clearer. The climb continued. Chapter 14, The Shifting Tides. Lu Chen stood at the entrance to the portal, his thoughts swirling in a storm of revelations and newfound purpose. The echo crystal hummed softly in his palm, the faint pulse of power reminding him of the trials he had just overcome. The echoes of fate had not only tested his strength and resolve but had forced him to confront the core of his being, his past, his choices, and the consequences of his destiny. With each trial, he had come closer to understanding the tower, but there was still much to uncover. He stepped through the portal, the familiar sensation of energy flowing through his body as the world around him shifted. The 9th floor was behind him, and before him lay the unknown floor 10. The moment he emerged, Lu Chen found himself standing in a vast, oceanic expanse. The air was thick with salt, and the distant crash of waves echoed through the expanse. As far as he could see, the ground was a shifting desert of sand, but the sand was different. It was dark, like ash, and it seemed to move with a life of its own, swirling as though caught in an eternal current. The sky above was a deep crimson, the sun hanging low on the horizon, casting everything in an eerie glow. The world around him was constantly shifting, like the sands beneath his feet were alive, undulating with unseen forces. There was a deep stillness to the place, but it was the kind of stillness that felt unnatural, as though everything in this world was holding its breath. A new notification flickered before him. Floor 10 Trial, The Shifting Tides. Objective: navigate the ever-changing landscape and uncover the source of the disturbance. Trial type: environmental adaptation and mental fortitude. Failure consequence: the sands will consume the climber, leaving only an echo behind. Lu Chen's eyes narrowed as he read the trial's description. This floor wasn't about facing enemies, it was about survival, about navigating the unpredictable landscape and uncovering the force behind the unsettling energy that filled the air. The sands of the floor weren't merely a challenge to physical endurance, they were a test of adaptability, of the ability to adapt to constant change. He began walking, his every step feeling heavier as the sands beneath him shifted. It was as though the ground itself was pushing back, resisting his progress. The farther he ventured, the more he felt a strange pull in the air, an energy that tugged at his mind, as though the world was trying to warp his perception. The landscape seemed to constantly change. As he walked, the horizon would blur and shift, transforming from a barren desert into a series of twisting cliffs, only to return to the sands again. It was like being trapped in a dream, where nothing was as it seemed, and everything was in constant flux. Lu Chen stopped for a moment, taking in his surroundings. The sand dunes rose and fell, their movements subtle yet powerful. The faint, almost imperceptible sound of whispers reached his ears, carried on the wind. They were not like the voices he had heard before. These whispers were distant, like fragments of forgotten memories carried across the winds of time. He could feel the pull of the tower's power here, stronger than ever, a quiet hum resonating deep within his chest. The energy of this floor wasn't meant to be fought head-on. Instead, it was a challenge to his very mind, to his ability to maintain his composure and navigate the unknown. With a deep breath, Lu Chen focused inward, drawing on the power of the Heartstone of Unity. The flow of energy through him calmed, and he felt the pulse of the tower aligning with his own. His senses sharpened, and he became aware of the subtle shifts in the environment, the ebb and flow of the energy around him. He moved cautiously, his every step measured. The sand seemed to move with him, almost as if responding to his intentions. He realized that the landscape wasn't just changing, it was testing him, challenging him to find a way to bend the world to his will. He tried something simple, a shift in his mental focus. As he concentrated, the sands around him seemed to settle, the chaotic movement slowing down. It was as if the environment was testing his ability to control the chaos, to find order in the madness. With the slightest movement of his hand, the sands beneath his feet parted, creating a pathway forward. It was a subtle change, but it was enough to give him confidence. The landscape was reacting to him, but it was also an act of surrender. He had to yield to its movements, let the shifting world guide him instead of forcing his own way forward. As he advanced, the air around him grew thicker, the pull of the energy increasing with every step. The whispers intensified, now almost tangible, their voices growing louder. There were no words, only fragments of memories, echoes from the past that he could almost grasp, but not quite. He reached out, his fingers brushing against the air, but the whispers slipped through his grasp like sand. His mind was being pushed to its limits. The sands weren't just shifting physically, they were distorting his perception, causing him to question what was real and what was not. He could feel his thoughts becoming muddled, the edges of reality becoming blurred. But just as the pressure began to mount, a sudden crackling noise pierced the silence, and the ground beneath him shook. The sand began to rise in a whirlwind, spinning violently around him. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, until they felt like a roar in his mind. From the center of the swirling sands, a massive figure began to emerge, tall and imposing, its form made entirely of shifting sand and arcane symbols. The creature towered over him, its eyes glowing with an ominous light. It was not a physical being, it was the manifestation of the landscape itself, a force of nature given form. The creature's voice was a deep, rumbling echo that reverberated in Lu Chen's bones. You have navigated the shifting tides, but the true test lies before you. To continue, you must confront the chaos within. The sand creature's form shifted again, its body swirling as it coiled around Lu Chen. The trial had just begun. Trial progress, 10%. Objective update: confront the manifestation of the shifting tides. Rewards pending. Lu Chen's heart raced as the creature's presence loomed over him, but he had already learned the lesson of this floor adaptation. This was no longer a battle against an enemy, but against the very forces of nature. To move forward, he would have to find balance between chaos and order, between his own will and the power of the tower. He stepped forward, his resolve hardening. The sand shifted beneath him again, but this time, Lu Chen was ready to face what lay ahead. The journey continued. Chapter 15: The Heart of Chaos. The sand creature loomed before Lu Chen, its massive, swirling form an embodiment of the very chaos that dominated this floor. Its body was an ever-shifting mass of dark, grainy sand, infused with symbols and ancient sigils glowing faintly in the dim light. The air around it was thick with power, its presence an overwhelming force. Lu Chen could feel the pull of its energy, a force of nature that seemed to bend reality itself. You seek to pass through the shifting tides. The creature's voice resonated, low and powerful. It was not a voice in the traditional sense, but rather an echo of something much older, a sound that seemed to vibrate in the very bones of the world. But can you withstand the chaos within? Can you tame the storm inside your soul? Lu Chen stood tall, his heart steady. He knew this trial wasn't just about confronting the creature, it was about facing his own inner turmoil, his own struggles with control and purpose. The sands around him swirled, a constant reminder of the shifting landscape and the mental strain it placed on him. The tower didn't just test the body, it tested the mind and the spirit. I've already learned that chaos is not something to be fought, Lu Chen responded, his voice calm, but carrying a weight of understanding. It's something to be understood, something to be balanced. The creature's form shifted, a low rumble reverberating through the air as it seemed to acknowledge his words. Balance. It mused, the word hanging in the air like a warning. You think you can balance the chaos within? There is no balance here. There is only the storm, and you are merely a speck in its endless winds. The swirling sands around Lu Chen began to intensify. The ground beneath his feet trembled, the air grew heavier, and the whispering voices that had once been distant now began to merge into a cacophony of unintelligible screams and laughter. His mind was assaulted with images, flashes of his past, visions of choices he had made, of people he had encountered. Every decision seemed to come rushing back, overwhelming him with their weight. Lu Chen closed his eyes for a moment, his breathing deepening. The chaos around him was not just external, it was in his mind, too. The tower was pushing him to face the deepest recesses of his own psyche, to confront the very turbulence he had suppressed over the years. He could feel the tension rising, the pressure threatening to crush him. The whispers in his mind, the whirlwind of thoughts and emotions, they were all manifestations of the internal chaos he carried. The tower, it seemed, was forcing him to face his own contradictions, his own inner storm. "You cannot escape yourself." The creature's voice echoed, its form growing larger as it loomed over him. "No matter how far you climb, no matter how strong you become, the chaos will always be with you. It is in your soul." Lu Chen opened his eyes, and for the first time, he saw it clearly, the true challenge of this floor. It wasn't the sands or the shifting landscape, it was the unrest inside him, the doubts and fears that had always lingered at the edges of his consciousness. The tower wasn't just a test of strength, it was a test of acceptance, of learning to live with the chaos rather than trying to control it. With a steady breath, Lu Chen extended his hands, his body relaxed. He no longer fought the winds of change or tried to push back the shifting sands. Instead, he surrendered to them, allowing the chaos to wash over him without resistance. He let the sands swirl around him, let them move through him, their power not something to be conquered, but something to be embraced. And in that moment, the world around him shifted. The sandstorm calmed, the wind stilling as the whispers faded. The creature's form trembled as the balance Lu Chen had sought took shape in the air. The chaos was still there, but it no longer controlled him. He had found a way to stand amidst the storm, to exist without being consumed. The sand creature, now less threatening, bowed its head slightly in recognition. "You have understood, Lu Chen. The storm within you has settled. You are no longer merely a speck in the winds of fate." The world around him began to change again. The sand dunes softened, the crimson sky above began to fade into a softer, more calming hue. The pressure in the air lifted, and the shifting tides that had once threatened to engulf him now seemed to gently guide him forward. A new notification appeared before him. Trial complete, the heart of chaos. Rewards gained. Plus 1,500 EXP. Chaos Mastery, passive ability, acquired. Echo of the Storm, unique item, acquired. Advancement to floor 11 unlocked. Lu Chen felt a surge of power as the system's message appeared. The Chaos Mastery ability resonated within him, a deep understanding of how to navigate the storms, both inside and outside. The Echo of the Storm, a mysterious item, pulsed in his hand, a tangible reminder of this trial's significance. He looked out at the horizon, the path to the 11th floor now clear before him. With a sense of calm and newfound clarity, Lu Chen stepped forward, knowing that the trials of the tower were far from over, but feeling more prepared than ever. The journey continued. Chapter 16, The Hidden Realm of Floor 11. Lu Chen took his first step onto the 11th floor, the transition between realms feeling smoother than before. The chaos of the previous trial had settled within him, and with it, a newfound understanding of balance. He was no longer just reacting to the tower's challenges, he was beginning to comprehend its rules, to see beyond the surface of each trial. As his vision cleared, he was met with an unexpected sight. Unlike the ever-shifting sands of the previous floor, Floor 11 was a stark contrast, a realm of tranquil beauty. A vast, floating landscape stretched out before him, suspended in an endless void of glowing constellations. Large islands of jade-green mountains and crystal-clear lakes hovered in the air, connected by bridges of floating stone slabs. It felt like a world untouched by time, an oasis of peace amid the tower's trials. A new notification flickered before his eyes. Floor 11 Trial, The Hidden Realm. Objective: uncover the secrets of the hidden realm and obtain the key of awakening. Trial type: exploration and comprehension. Failure consequence: eternal imprisonment within the hidden realm. Lu Chen's eyes narrowed. This was unlike any trial he had faced before. It wasn't about combat or survival, it was about understanding. The term hidden realm suggested that the true nature of this floor wasn't obvious. There was something buried within the illusion of peace, something he would need to unravel. As he stepped forward, his foot landed on a floating platform, and it instantly reacted to his presence. The stone beneath him pulsed with ancient inscriptions, glowing faintly before settling into stillness. A soft breeze carried the scent of blooming flowers, and in the distance, he could hear the faint sound of waterfalls cascading down the cliffs. Lu Chen moved carefully, studying his surroundings. Every detail of this place felt too perfect, as if designed to lull visitors into complacency. The trial's failure condition made it clear if he didn't uncover the truth of this floor, he could be trapped here forever. Where do I start? Lu Chen muttered, scanning the floating islands ahead. He focused on his newly acquired chaos mastery, allowing himself to sense the flow of energy around him. Immediately, he noticed something off. The air carried a subtle distortion, like a layer of reality that didn't quite fit. Instead of walking forward blindly, he activated his echo of the storm. The moment he held it up, a faint pulse of energy radiated outward, revealing hidden anomalies in the space around him. In the distance, a particular floating island shimmered for a brief second before returning to normal. "That's it," Lu Chen murmured, setting his sights on the flickering island. He leaped onto the next floating platform, making his way across the bridges of stone that linked the islands. Each step was met with a gentle hum of energy, as though the floor itself was aware of his movements. As he neared the shimmering island, the illusion around it became more apparent. The trees were too still, the water too reflective, as if someone had crafted a perfect painting rather than a real landscape. With his chaos mastery, Lu Chen reached out, disrupting the flow of energy around him. The illusion shattered. A deep rumbling sound echoed through the realm as the hidden island revealed its true form. The once pristine landscape twisted into a dark temple, its stone walls lined with intricate carvings that glowed with an eerie azure light. The air around it was heavy, filled with a strange presence that sent a chill down Lu Chen's spine. He had found the hidden realm's secret. Before he could take another step, a voice rang out, a voice that seemed to come from the walls themselves. "Mortal, you have seen beyond the veil. But can you withstand the truth?" The ground beneath him trembled as two statues lining the temple's entrance suddenly began to move, their stone bodies grinding against the air as their hollow eyes glowed with a sinister light. The guardians had awakened. Lu Chen clenched his fists, energy surging through him. This floor had tried to trap him in a world of illusions, but he had seen through it. Now, it was time to face whatever lay within this hidden realm and claim the key of awakening. The trial had truly begun. Chapter 17: The Guardians of the Hidden Realm. The two statues that had once stood silent at the temple's entrance now moved with a terrifying presence. Their stone bodies groaned as they came to life, ancient carvings glowing with pulsating azure energy. Each of them stood over 4 meters tall, their forms resembling warrior deities from ancient myths, clad in stone armor engraved with intricate runes. Lu Chen took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. The hidden realm had concealed its truth behind illusions, but now that he had uncovered it, the tower was forcing him to prove his worthiness. The notification that flickered before his eyes confirmed it. Guardian trial initiated. Objective: defeat the twin guardians and claim the key of awakening. Failure consequence: sealing of the soul within the hidden realm. Lu Chen's muscles tensed. These weren't ordinary opponents, they were manifestations of the tower's will, constructs designed to eliminate intruders who had uncovered forbidden knowledge. The first guardian moved with startling speed, its massive stone fist cutting through the air as it struck toward Lu Chen. He barely dodged, feeling the sheer force of the attack shake the ground beneath him. Dust and debris scattered, showing just how devastating a direct hit would be. Before he could counter, the second guardian raised its arm, and the runes on its body glowed brighter. A pulse of blue energy erupted outward, distorting the space around Lu Chen. His vision blurred for a split second, and when he refocused, the guardians had multiplied, or rather, his perception of reality had been altered. An illusion-type ability? Lu Chen muttered. He instinctively activated Chaos Mastery, allowing his mind to cut through the fabricated reality. The moment he did, the false copies of the guardians faded, leaving only the two original ones. But he had no time to relax. The first guardian was already upon him again, swinging down with a thunderous punch. Instead of dodging outright, Lu Chen channeled chi into his legs, reinforcing his footing before launching a counterstrike. His fist met the guardian's arm, and at the moment of impact, he activated Echo of the Storm. A powerful shockwave erupted, not only stopping the guardian's attack but also forcing it back a few steps. Lu Chen's new skill wasn't just an offensive ability, it disrupted energy flow, causing the Guardian's runes to flicker for a moment. That worked, Lu Chen thought, quickly analyzing the situation. These constructs were powered by rune inscriptions, meaning if he could disrupt their energy circuits, he could weaken them. The second Guardian, now realizing its companion had been pushed back, began to chant in an ancient language, causing the runes on the temple walls to light up. Lu Chen's instincts screamed danger. The Guardian wasn't just fighting, it was activating the temple's power. Not willing to let that happen, Lu Chen reacted instantly. He reached into his inventory and pulled out a rare tier talisman, one he had been saving for emergencies. With a quick motion, he crushed it in his palm, unleashing a burst of golden energy that shot toward the chanting Guardian. The explosion was enough to interrupt its casting, causing its energy to momentarily destabilize. That was his opening. Lu Chen closed the distance in a flash, his chi-enhanced movement allowing him to appear directly in front of the Guardian. He coated his fist in condensed chi, then delivered a devastating strike to its core rune, the center of its power flow. Cracks spread across the Guardian's chest, and in the next moment, it shattered into hundreds of glowing fragments. Guardian of the Hidden Realm, defeated. Lu Chen barely had time to register the notification before the remaining Guardian roared, its entire body surging with violent energy. It had lost its companion, and now it was entering a state of berserk rage. Its once methodical movements became erratic but much faster, and it unleashed a barrage of attacks. Lu Chen dodged left and right, narrowly avoiding the stone fists that came crashing down like meteors. Realizing he needed a finishing move, Lu Chen activated Echo of the Storm once more, but this time, he didn't release it immediately. Instead, he channeled the energy into his next attack, allowing the disruptive power to build. When the Guardian lunged forward, Lu Chen met it head-on, delivering a final, precision strike directly to its head. The moment his fist connected, the stored shockwave detonated, sending ripples of destabilization through the Guardian's body. The construct froze for a moment, its runes flickering violently, then it crumbled into dust. Twin Guardians, defeated. Trial completion, 100%. Rewards gained. Plus 2000 EXP. Key of Awakening, Trial Artifact, acquired. Enhanced Chaos Mastery, passive upgrade. Lu Chen exhaled, finally allowing his body to relax. The temple before him, once guarded by the statues, now stood open. He stepped forward, feeling the weight of his victory settling in. The Key of Awakening, now in his possession, pulsed faintly in his hand. It wasn't an ordinary key, it was an artifact, something with power beyond just unlocking doors. Lu Chen knew this was only the beginning. The Hidden Realm still held secrets, and the deeper he ventured, the closer he came to uncovering the true purpose of the tower's trials. With the temple's entrance open before him, he took a final breath and stepped inside. The journey continued. Chapter 18, The Temple of Awakening. Lu Chen stepped through the entrance of the ancient temple, the Key of Awakening pulsing faintly in his palm. The battle against the Twin Guardians had been tough, but he had learned something critical: the tower's trials weren't just about combat. Every challenge he faced seemed to test not only his strength but also his understanding of the world around him. As he walked deeper into the temple, the air grew heavy with energy. The walls were lined with intricate carvings depicting celestial beings, towering structures, and familiar scenes of challengers ascending. It was as if this temple held a record of the tower itself, a hidden history that few had seen. A notification appeared before him. The Temple of Awakening. Trial objective: place the Key of Awakening in the altar of truth. Warning: once the key is placed, your soul will be tested. If you fail, you will lose more than just your life. Lu Chen narrowed his eyes. This was different from any trial he had faced before. A soul test? He had encountered life-threatening battles, but this suggested something even more dangerous: an examination of his very essence. At the heart of the temple stood a massive stone altar, its surface engraved with countless ancient inscriptions. At its center was a small, circular indentation, the perfect shape for the Key of Awakening. Lu Chen didn't hesitate. He placed the key into the slot. The moment he did, the entire temple trembled. The carvings on the walls lit up, filling the chamber with a golden glow. A powerful force surged through the air, and before Lucian could react, everything around him disappeared. The trial of the soul. Lucian opened his eyes to find himself floating in an endless void. There was no ground beneath him, no sky above, just an infinite expanse of shifting light. The sensation was strange yet familiar, as if he had been here before. A voice echoed through the void. "Mortal, you have entered the domain of awakening. Show us the truth of your soul." Before Lucian could respond, figures began to form around him, shadows of himself. They emerged from the void, taking on his exact appearance, each one carrying a different expression. Some looked confident, others angry, a few even seemed defeated. A notification appeared. Soul trial initiated. Objective: confront the truth of your existence. Failure consequence: loss of identity. Lucian's heart pounded. This wasn't a battle of strength, it was something deeper. The first shadow stepped forward, its eyes cold and ruthless. "You think you are strong? You are nothing but a prisoner of the tower, a pawn in a game you don't understand." Lucian clenched his fists. He had thought the same once, back when he had first been transmigrated into this world. But that was no longer the case. "I choose my own path," he replied firmly. "The tower may have brought me here, but I decide what to do with my power." The shadow dissipated instantly, vanishing like smoke. Another shadow took its place, this one grinning with mockery. "You act like a hero, but deep down, aren't you just climbing for yourself? What makes you any different from the others who seek power?" Lucian hesitated. That question struck deep. He wanted power, that was undeniable, but why? Was it truly for himself, or was there something more? "I don't have all the answers yet," Lucian admitted, his voice steady. "But I won't let my journey be defined by doubt. I will find my reason." The second shadow faded, the void shifting once more. One by one, the manifestations of his inner self confronted him, forcing him to face his doubts, fears, and desires. But with each confrontation, Lucian felt himself becoming lighter, as if he was shedding invisible weights he hadn't even realized he was carrying. Finally, the last shadow appeared, this one silent. Unlike the others, it didn't speak. It simply stared at him, eyes unreadable. Lucian frowned. "What are you?" The shadow slowly raised its hand, pointing directly at Lucian's chest. A wave of understanding hit him. This last shadow wasn't doubt, wasn't arrogance, wasn't anger. It was everything he had yet to become, the unknown version of himself that lay at the end of his journey. Lucian exhaled. He didn't need to fight this shadow. He only needed to acknowledge it. With a nod, he stepped forward, and the shadow merged into him, becoming part of his very being. Awakening. The void around him shattered, and Lucian found himself back in the temple, standing before the altar. The key of awakening was gone, but in its place, a new notification appeared. Soul trial complete. Rewards gained. Plus 2,500 EXP. Awakened soul, passive ability, acquired. Path of the true challenger unlocked. Lucian's entire body felt different. The power within him had stabilized, his mind clearer than ever. The awakened soul ability resonated through him, reinforcing his will. He didn't just feel stronger, he felt whole. The temple doors slowly began to open, revealing a staircase leading upward to the 12th floor. With renewed determination, Lucian stepped forward. The tower's trials were far from over, but he had taken a crucial step toward understanding himself. And in this world of endless challenges, that was the greatest strength of all. The climb continued. Chapter 19, The 12th Floor, Path of the True Challenger. Lucian ascended the staircase leading to the 12th floor, his mind still processing everything that had happened in the Temple of Awakening. The soul trial had stripped away his doubts, forcing him to confront himself in ways he never had before. Now, with the awakened soul ability resonating within him, he felt clearer, stronger, and most importantly, in control. As he stepped onto the next floor, the tower's presence shifted once again. The usual grandeur of its trials was replaced by a stark, empty landscape. A vast stone pathway stretched endlessly forward, suspended in a void of swirling golden light. Unlike previous floors, there were no monsters, no ancient ruins, no immediate threats. A notification appeared. 12th floor, the path of the true challenger. Objective: walk the path and claim the mark of the challenger. Failure consequence: banishment to the lower floors. Lu Chen's eyes narrowed. This was unlike any trial he had faced before. The failure condition wasn't death, it was banishment. If he failed here, he wouldn't just lose progress, he would be sent downward, forced to repeat previous floors. That meant only true challengers could advance from here. Lu Chen took his first step onto the stone path, and instantly, something changed. A pressure descended upon him, a weight unlike anything he had felt before. It wasn't a physical force, it was something deeper, something woven into the very essence of the tower. With every step he took, the pressure grew stronger. It was as if the tower itself was judging him, testing whether he was truly worthy of climbing higher. He activated Chaos Mastery, trying to analyze the force pressing down on him, but the moment he did, a notification appeared. All external abilities restricted. Only your will determines success. Lu Chen gritted his teeth. No skills, no cheats, no shortcuts, this was a trial of willpower alone. Step by step, he moved forward. The further he walked, the more the weight increased, pressing against his very soul. His muscles trembled, his breath grew heavy, and a burning sensation filled his chest. It was as if his very existence was being tested. Soon, he reached the first milestone, a towering stone monolith inscribed with golden characters. As he approached, the inscriptions shone brightly, and a voice echoed in his mind. "What is your purpose in climbing the tower?" Lu Chen's heart pounded. The tower was questioning him directly. He knew his answer. "To become stronger," he replied, his voice unwavering. "To uncover the truth of this world." The golden inscriptions flashed, and the weight on his body increased drastically. It was as if the tower had accepted his answer but demanded proof. Gritting his teeth, Lu Chen pushed forward, stepping past the monolith. The path narrowed, and the pressure became suffocating. Every step forward felt like he was dragging the entire world with him. More monoliths appeared in the distance. Each one carried a different inscription, a different question that tested the very foundation of his existence. "What do you fear?" Lu Chen paused. What did he fear? Was it death? No. He had already accepted that danger was a part of the climb. But if he was honest with himself, "I fear losing myself," he admitted. "Becoming someone I no longer recognize." The moment he spoke, the weight doubled. The tower was relentless. "What do you fight for?" Lu Chen clenched his fists. This answer was clearer. "For my own path," he declared. "I refuse to be controlled by the tower or by fate." The golden inscriptions flashed again, and the force pressing down on him became unbearable. His vision blurred, his legs nearly collapsed beneath him, but he refused to fall. Step by step, he endured. After what felt like an eternity, he reached the final monolith at the end of the path. This time, there were no questions, only a single glowing sigil in the center of the stone. Lu Chen took a deep breath and pressed his palm against it. The moment he did, a torrent of energy erupted from the monolith, engulfing him in golden light. 12th floor trial completed. Mark of the challenger obtained. The overwhelming pressure vanished, and the stone path began to dissolve beneath his feet. Before he could react, the world around him shifted, and he found himself standing before a massive golden gate, the entrance to the 13th floor. Lu Chen exhaled slowly. This trial had pushed him beyond his limits, not physically, but mentally and spiritually. But he had endured. He looked up at the golden gate. The next trial awaited. And he was ready. The climb continued. Chapter 20, the 13th floor, Arena of Ascension. Lu Chen took a deep breath as he stood before the golden gate, the entrance to the 13th floor. The trial on the 12th floor had pushed him beyond his limits, testing his willpower and resolve rather than his strength. But now, as he gazed at the grand doorway before him, he knew the next challenge would be different. With the mark of the challenger now branded onto his soul, he placed his hand against the shimmering gate. The moment he did, a system notification appeared. 13th floor, Arena of Ascension. Objective: survive the challenger's arena and claim the crest of the victor. Failure consequence: loss of challenger status. The golden light of the gate engulfed him, and in an instant, the world around him changed. The arena. When Lu Chen's vision cleared, he found himself standing in the center of a colossal coliseum. Towering stone walls surrounded him, and above, massive spectator stands stretched endlessly into the distance, filled with shadowy figures. Their faces were obscured, but their presence was unmistakable. The arena floor was smooth and dark, made of a material that absorbed sound and light. In the distance, a massive stone obelisk stood tall, its surface pulsing with golden inscriptions. It was clear this was the trial's objective. A booming voice echoed throughout the Colosseum. Welcome, challenger. You have climbed far, but strength is tested only in battle. Show your might, and earn your right to ascend. As soon as the voice faded, the ground trembled, and a massive system message flashed before Lu Chen's eyes. First trial, combat challenge. Defeat the arena guardians to proceed. The stone obelisk glowed, and from the ground, warriors of pure energy began to materialize. Each of them was clad in ancient armor, wielding weapons shimmering with elemental energy. Lu Chen's eyes sharpened. These weren't mindless creatures, they were designed to test his combat prowess. There were 5 of them in total, each one radiating power. Arena Guardian, level 40. Type: Elite Construct. Strength: high. Speed: medium. Skills: unknown. Lu Chen quickly assessed the situation. These weren't ordinary enemies, they were tower-forged constructs, each likely possessing unique combat skills. He couldn't afford to hold back. The first guardian charged forward, its longsword crackling with lightning. Lu Chen reacted instantly, sidestepping just as the sword cleaved downward. Sparks erupted as the blade shattered the stone beneath them. Not missing a beat, Lu Chen countered with Echo of the Storm, his fist pulsating with kinetic energy. He struck the guardian's chest, and a shockwave rippled outward, sending it skidding back. Before he could follow up, the second guardian raised its staff, summoning a wave of fire that roared toward him. Lu Chen activated Chaos Mastery, his mind instantly calculating the best response. He leaped over the flames, twisting in the air before landing behind the caster. Without hesitation, he unleashed a burst of chi-infused strikes, his hands moving like a blur. The guardian crumbled, its energy dispersing into the arena floor. Arena Guardian defeated. But there was no time to celebrate. The remaining 3 guardians moved in unison, their weapons glowing as they launched a combined assault. Lu Chen dodged, weaving between their strikes with precision. One of the guardians swung its halberd, but he ducked low, allowing the blade to pass over his head before delivering a precise strike to its knee joint. The construct staggered, and Lu Chen capitalized, driving a palm strike into its core. The construct shattered, leaving only 2 left. The battle intensified. The last 2 guardians were faster, stronger, learning from his attacks. One unleashed a barrage of ice shards, while the other used wind-based movements, making it nearly impossible to land a hit. Lu Chen exhaled slowly. It was time to end this. He activated Awakened Soul, channeling all of his energy into a single moment. His movements accelerated, and in an instant, he was behind the wind user. A precise strike to its core shattered it instantly. Before the last guardian could react, Lu Chen closed the distance and unleashed a final, explosive strike straight to its head. The energy backlash rippled through the arena, and the final guardian collapsed into dust. Arena Guardians defeated. Trial progress, 50%. Lu Chen breathed heavily. The fight had been tougher than expected, but he could tell this trial wasn't over yet. The stone obelisk pulsed again, and a new message appeared. Final trial, the challenger's duel. Opponent? Objective: prove your strength in a one-on-one battle. A portal of golden light appeared in the arena's center. From within, a figure stepped forward. As the light faded, Lu Chen's eyes widened. Standing before him was a warrior clad in silver armor, his presence radiating overwhelming strength. But what shocked Liu Chen the most was his face. He looked exactly like Liu Chen himself. A final system notification appeared. Opponent identified, shadow of the challenger. This battle will determine your worth. Fight and ascend. Liu Chen clenched his fists. A battle against himself? He smiled slightly. This was going to be interesting. The climb continued.